Hey chevra, this is an introduction to how to use the project chevruta guide. So unlike the pitch groups, when projects are completed, you're going to be spending a little bit of time analyzing projects by yourself and then some time actually using the project as like a chevruta text using this guide. So let's walk you through how it's going to work. First of all, imagine the person who's presenting, represented here, is going to be presenting to a group, but the people in the group, the students in the groups, are going to be pairs of students. So they'll be sitting together during the presentation, but think of them as being chevruta pairs. So as you can see here, you have a presenter, and you have a group of two, and then a chevruta pair of two, and another chevruta pair of two. In some cases, there might be a group of two and a group of three, something like that. Depends on the numbers for the class. The presenter does their presentation. The students can take notes if they need to, but I think it's really better if they're just paying attention with good eye contact and good body language for the presenter. And they should have ready this project chevruta guide. Now this guide, everything that you see here, this kind of multi-colored cat hat thing, and then some boxes below, this is one student's project worth. For you, you're going to need to open this document before you sit down to work. Open a fresh Google Doc like this, new document, and you're going to need to put the cursor on the page and do Control A and Control C so that you can make your own document like this, and everybody's going to be analyzing. You're not going to analyze your own, but let's say the presenter is also going to be analyzing 1, 2, 3, 4 other people. So what you should do on your document, now that you've done Control A here of all the stuff, is paste it. 1. Okay, so that's 1. That's 1 student's. 2. And so on, so that you have 4. So that you have this entire thing 4 times. Not sure why that's so big. I'll fix that. But in any case, you're making one sheet so that you can. Let's fix that. I don't know. I'll figure that out later. But you're making one sheet that has this grid 4 times. Hope that makes sense. If it's not clear, we'll explain later. So then now it's time for the presentations. Presenter 1 goes. Then, when the person is done, you have some tasks to do first alone. First is the red hat, which is what struck you. That's why it's red, because it's like boom, right? So it says, I was struck by whatever the person's, however the person's project strikes you, something that surprised you, something that you might have expected, something you liked. I don't know, maybe there's something that you didn't like. This is really up to you. Obviously, you're going to want to be constructive and kind because other students are going to review these. So this is how you're going to be giving your feedback. So be constructive. And after you do what struck you, then you move on to white hat. White hat is just kind of describing things as they are. So we talk about salient features. The word salient feature just means something that kind of pops out, something that you might remember after the presentation is over. And I have it divided, as usual, into text, self, and contemporary culture, with some spaces under each one. Do you need to do 3? Do you need to do 5? Do you need to do 2? It's really up to you. I included spaces for 2 and then a question mark for more. Maybe while you're jotting notes, you'll think of more than that. So that's where your notes for text, self, and contemporary culture go. After you finish that section, you're done for a few minutes. Let your chevruta catch up with you. And by the way, at any time when you are when there's nothing for you to do because you're waiting for a chevruta or for any other reason, you could always be doing, depending on which class you're in, Hebrew Bazaar. You should have that ready to go so you can work on it. Or if Hebrew Bazaar is done or you're in a class that doesn't do Hebrew Bazaar, if you're like, what's that? Then you don't do it. Earning badges through quests. We've already introduced that, but if you're not sure what that is, go to Schoology and watch the intro video so that there's never a time when you're just sitting wasting your time. Okay, so you've finished red and white hat, then get together with your chevruta, and here's what you do. First thing is you review the text, and you choose just 2 things from this column together to figure out where did the author get that original stuff from. Typically, that'll be your text items here. So you're just kind of doing research, like where did they get that imagery from? Some of it will be obvious and maybe some won't. And here you just cite the text, or if you want, you can copy and paste it. So it goes right in this box. I think copying and pasting actually is a good idea. So you copy and paste the sentence or the several sentences into this box. Then you move on. And here's where you're thinking, what did the artist do to the original one, changing it from, let's say it was a biblical text? How did they make something bigger or smaller? How did they make something amplified or ignored? Did they combine some imagery? Did they swap imagery? Did they alter it? Did they twist it? And the language you should think of when you're doing this in chevruta is, in the original, the salient feature, the thing that popped out was this. But in the project, the author did this. They amplified it, they made it bigger, they made it louder, they made it more important, or they ignored certain aspects of the text that you noticed. So I ask you to do 5 of those. If you don't have to do 5, do fewer, and then you move on. And this asks you to think about, what does the art project do to your understanding of the themes of the course or the unit? In teacher talk, we call it enduring understandings and essential questions. But for you, just the themes in the course, the themes of the course of the unit. If you're not sure what those are, you can actually click here, and it'll open up a list of the different themes, and for each unit, figure out which unit we're in, and it tells you what the theme is. But say, what does the art project do to your understanding of that? How does it add to your understanding? Talk that out in chevruta. Discuss it, and jot some notes here. Finally, the last column, green, asks you, what is the artist's project saying about real life? And it actually asks you both explicitly, like maybe it says something specifically about real life, maybe it implies something, but maybe it even accidentally says something about real life. The author may not have intended, but you're like, wow, your piece is basically saying this. And here's your chance to say, do you feel like the advice is justified by the text? Is the author saying something that is opposite of what the text says? And you might provide some evidence of whether the author's interpretation is actually what the text says, and provide some evidence here, maybe cite a verse. Do you agree with what the person says about life? Or do you disagree with what the person says about life? Here's how you just get to react to what the author's statement is, not just what the author's art shows you, but also what it's trying to say to you. And you might even include a story or an anecdote to explain where you're coming from. The author says something about the way communication these days is not good or something. I don't know. Here maybe you would provide a story and anecdote to argue the opposite. So this is just your chance to react to what the author is saying about real life. Once you've done these in chevruta, usually give about 10 minutes. And by the way, the different boxes on here, you don't need to feel like you need to do one of everything. These are prompts that are designed to encourage you to think through the different ways of looking at art. If it's getting stale and you're not coming up with something and you've really given it a fair shot, then move to the next column. Okay, now down below, this is the most important part, because now that you've analyzed the art and you've really thought about it, here's where you get to give feedback. What could you do to improve the project's aesthetic? In other words, just basically to make it look better. What would you do? Why would you do it? How would you do it? Is there something that's a little illogical about the project? There might not be, but maybe there is. What would you change? Why would you change it? How would you change it? Is there something in the project where the artist is trying to do or say something, but it doesn't work very well? What would you change? Why or how? Is there an element of meaning where they almost said something awesome, but they didn't quite say it? What do you wish they had said? And why do you wish they had said it? And how do you wish they had said it? And finally, if they could develop the connection to the text better, what or why or how could they do that to make it really more rooted in the actual text? Once you've done this in chevruta, then you have to make sure that you have shared the document so that anyone with the link can see it, can view it. And then you take the link and you go to Wolk's class notes. And this is always available on Schoology, but if it's not, we'll make sure that we share it. And everybody should paste the link at a different place. One thing to note, don't paste it right after the number. Give a few spaces and then paste it right here. And make sure that everybody in the group has their own number. This way, the student can go home, click the link, and review the notes and think about what changes they might want to make based on your feedback. In a nutshell, that is how to use the chevruta guide. I'm sure you'll have questions, so jot them down right now, and we will talk about them, but hopefully that gave you a good introduction.